Hi, welcome back. I'm Heather McGowan. Let's talk about how to support your teams when uncertainty is high. Let's talk about some questions we're going to answer in this video. How long is the human battery? What does relaxation have to do with resilience? What is trust and how to rebuild it? By the end of this video, you'll understand how important communication is, especially listening and supporting your teams in times of high uncertainty. Now we're going to look at the Economic Policy Uncertainty Index. A lot of uncertainty indexes out there. They all kind of point in the same direction. You've seen a few of them across my videos. But this one is on economic policy uncertainty. We've looked at this one over the past 25 years. And it really comes from three inputs. They look at tax codes coming on and offline. They look at the number of times the word uncertainty is used in major economic journals versus all the words in that journal. And then they look at the degree to which economists can agree or not agree on where the economy is heading. If you look over the last 20 years, you've seen a gradual increase in economic policy uncertainty. And in the height of that, globally and in the US, was certainly COVID. But look what's happened since. We now have a higher level of economic policy uncertainty than we did in COVID, for a number of reasons. We've got global conflicts around the world between a lot of different countries, not just the US. We've got trade wars, we've got tariffs, and we've got technologies coming on that people aren't really sure where they're going. So, as I've said to you in other videos about what uncertainty does to the brain, we're also in the middle of a loneliness epidemic. And I've got a whole series of videos on loneliness. If you're interested in them, you can find them on YouTube. But loneliness does a really interesting thing. It makes your amygdala go into overdrive. Loneliness is a threat to our species, because we as a species, sapiens, when we were out on the Serengeti, if we were alone, we were more likely to be killed. If we were in a group, we were more likely to be protected for a number of reasons. So it's very primal to us for amygdala to spike and go into overdrive. Right now, depending on where you are in the world, somewhere between 25% and 50% of the folks report being lonely. Now, when we're lonely and that amygdala goes into overdrive, we go into fight or flight or us versus them. So it's not surprising to see why we have high levels of social and political polarization right now. It's also equivalent to about 15 cigarettes a day, so it's terrible for our physical health. When you're trying to support your team when uncertainty is high, realize it's not just the uncertainty that's causing us to go in reactive mode, it's also this loneliness epidemic. Now let's talk about trust. Trust is an antidote to uncertainty. So this quote about trust comes from Andy Stanley. He's a pastor in Atlanta. He's written a number of books. I also think he's a speaker. And he says, trust is the gap between what we experience and what we expect. And this visual might be helpful. Trust is that bridge, because what lies below what we expect and what we experience is sort of suspicion. And how do you bridge that gap? But you bridge that gap with trust. And how do you build trust? There's a couple different ways. One, if you believe the people have right intentions, you'll give them the benefit of the doubt. And if you see their actions are consistently trying to fulfill the experience you expect to have, then you give them more benefit of the doubt. So that's one model for trust. Let's talk about why we need trust. I think about it as the 3 M's. So we have trust in marriage, relationships. We have trust in money, so we can make transactions. And we have trust in markets or in systems. So those are 3 levels and different types of trust. So let's look at those levels of trust. So trust between 2 people, 2 individuals, is local. That's localized trust between one person and another. We have institutional trust, which is between society and communities. And then we have distributed trust, which is often enabled by technology. Trust right now is moving. So we used to trust experts. An expert would tell you to get a vaccine. An expert would tell you to read this, or this was true, or that was true. But what we're seeing is trust is moving away from experts and moving into individuals. So when you're trying to support your team when uncertainty is high, realize that we don't have that same expertise we used to have. People are looking more side to side to their peers for their trust. Let's look at some factors that are evidence that trust is moving from experts to individuals. Only 20% of Americans trust scientists to disclose their conflicts of interest. 57% of Gen Z folks trust their peers more than they trust traditional journalists for their sources of information. And 61% of folks trust influencers over traditional advertising for making their decisions. This is a change in expert credibility, generational shift, and peer influence. It's an important way to understand how trust is moving, because when you're trying to support your teams when uncertainty is high, you have to understand where trust is, because trust is an important way of settling your folks. So we have this sort of long-standing and really tacit contract around work. We say to folks when we hire them, I want you to work for me, and I want you to give me your loyalty, and I'll give you the security of employment. It's a lie. We haven't had the security of employment for several decades. So there's something else that's coming up, and I call it the 5 M's. It's my definition of the new work contract, and it looks like this. So it's money, People want to be fairly, that's table stakes. Next, it's mission. People want to be part of something bigger than themselves. They want to have an impact on the world. If they're spending more than a third of their time with you, they want to know, and more, even a greater share of mine, they want to know they're working on something important. Next, it's meaning. Am I doing meaningful work? Am I meaningful work contributing to the mission? What am I doing in my life? What kind of impact I'm having on the world? Next is mentorship. Young people today, and all people today, but particularly young people, know it's as important to learn as it is to earn. So that means who is my mentor? How are they thinking about not me just in this job, but me in my career? I have an expression, learning is the new pension. That's how you create your future value every day. And then finally, it's membership. Work is one of the last places of belonging. So a lot of people are looking to belong at work. Collectively, 4 of those 5 M's are really about shared purpose. When you're trying to support your teams when uncertainty is high, one way to do it is to ground it in shared purpose. That's why I think this 5M model is really important, because 4 of those 5 M's are all about shared purpose. It's different ways that you connect to shared purpose. So here I'm sharing some research from Cassandra Worthy, and I think this visual might be helpful as well. She's done a lot of research around how do people move effectively through change. Now, everybody knows change efforts usually fail. And one of the reasons they fail is lack of communication. If you were able, this is Cassandra's research, if you were able to safely share your emotions at work, would it help you navigate the change? And look at these statistics. It's all kind of over the map, but at least 69% of folks feel like they would significantly improve on the change effort and their ability to navigate change if they could safely express their emotions at work. Now, this is not ruminating on things they don't like. It might be saying, I'm kind of anxious about this. Can you tell me more about this? Or, this hasn't been going well. I just need to talk this through with you. So it's that kind of sharing, not I don't want this change to happen and it's making me anxious. That's not going to help you navigate through a change process. But if you can say, I'm a little anxious about this. Can you tell me what we know, what we don't know, what kind of progress we're making? You cannot communicate enough with folks during a change process. When you're trying to support your teams when uncertainty is high, it's important to look at the resilience and the human battery. So the human battery is at most 16 hours long. So regardless of what time of day you work, you need rest. You can only do so much. And there's some interesting research that came out that leaders who disconnect, who go home, put their phone away, put their laptop away, and don't look at it again till the next morning, come back more energized, engaged, and more effective when they're at work. Because not only are they disconnecting, but they're signaling to their people to disconnect, because they're reducing the overall level of burnout. You make poor decisions. The reason we have a workday that's 8 hours long was that Henry Ford discovered that all the accidents were happening on the 9th, 10th, and 11th hour on the production line. So he capped the workday at 8 hours, not because he was some sort of great guy. It was because he realized it was actually costly to have people work longer. We haven't figured that out yet when it comes to cognitive work or modern work today. But leaders who do that, leaders who disconnect and say, I'm done, I'll talk to you about it in the morning, come back more energized and more effective. It's important to pay attention to how long that human battery is. So let's talk about resilience. Sven Hansen from the Resilience Institute in Australia says that there are basically 5 keys to building resilience. And those 5 keys may be counterintuitive because it's not just like buckle hard and try harder and push through the exhaustion. There are moments you have to do that, but it actually starts with sleep. Good sleep is your best defense at helping your team manage when uncertainty is high. Making sure that people get good rest. You make better decisions. Your brain takes the trash out. All the thought fragments that are getting in the way of you making a good decision get flushed out in a good night's sleep. So first and foremost, a good night's sleep. Second, fulfillment. Working on something for more than 90 minutes a day. So working on a project intently gives you a feeling of progress, gives you a feeling of traction, actually increases your resilience. So having to be able to fulfillment by focusing on an in-depth or important project for at least 90 minutes a day. Then bounce. So bounce is overcoming adversity. It's not bouncing back, it's bouncing forward. The more you overcome adversity, the more comfort and more confidence you have about doing it the next time. So overcoming adversity. And as a leader, you can really help your team by helping them understand how you overcame adversity. So if you act like an unquestioned expert who makes decisions in certainty and has never made a mistake, you're actually not helping your team. When you're authentic and you're vulnerable and you say, listen, this is what I struggled with and this is what I did, you're actually helping your team members with their bounce abilities. Relaxation. It may seem counterintuitive, like, I'll go to the spa next weekend, or I'll get a nap in on Sunday, or I will relax when I'm done with this. Actually need relaxation every day. Your brain needs about 5 to 7 minutes a day to relax. So for some folks, it's meditation. For some folks, it's prayer. Sometimes it's going for a walk. It's just shutting down your brain for a few minutes so it can almost reset, kind of like setting your computer restarting your computer after you have too many windows open. And then finally, focus. Focus is a practice. Teenagers today are shifting focus every 19 seconds. I'm like a teenager, I have that problem myself. So the constant partial attention is eroding our ability to be resilient. So focus is a practice. Block 30 minutes at first, 15 if you have to an hour where you're not touching your phone, you're not getting distracted, you're working consistently on one project. So these are the 5 steps to building resilience. Sleep, fulfillment, bounce, relaxation, and focus. So how do you support teams when uncertainty is high? First thing you do is acknowledge the uncertainty, and acknowledge the uncertainty, what it's doing to your brain, what it's doing to your body, how you're feeling, and try to settle that ball. Trust. You build trust through right intention and consistent actions. If you are consistently trying, people will see it and you build more trust. Next, it's anchoring people in a sense of purpose. This is what we're trying to do. This is the pursuit we're on. This is the mission. This is the meaningful work for you. It's communication, listening to folks. What do they need? Where can you offer them flexibility? It gives them a greater sense of agency. And then remind folks, we are more adaptable and resilient than we realize. We went through a COVID-19 pandemic 5 years ago. And in that 5 years, in the first month, we leapt forward 5 years in our progress in digital transformation in that first 30 days. Why? Because we could always do it. And then we didn't do it until we were pushed. We were so much more resilient and adaptable than we give ourselves credit for. So I'm Heather McGowan. If you found this helpful, you can visit my website, click on the link below, and I'll give you a free gift. I'll give you the introduction and the first chapter of my book, The Adaptation Advantage, which you might find helpful. And that's at heathermcgowan.com/gift.